Blessed is he that considereth the poor. The I Am will deliver him in time of trouble. The I Am will preserve him and keep him alive. And he shall be blessed upon the earth, and thou wilt not deliver him unto the will of his enemies. The I Am will strengthen him upon the bed of languishing. Thou wilt make all his bed in his sickness. I said, Yahuwah, be merciful unto me. Heal my soul, for I have sinned against thee. Mine enemies speak evil of me. When shall he die, and his name perish? If he come to see me, he speak vanity. His heart gathereth iniquity to itself. When he goeth abroad, he telleth it. All that hate me whisper together against me. Against me do they devise my hurt. An evil disease, say they, cleaveth fast unto him, and now that he lieth, he shall rise up no more. An evil disease. Yea, mine own familiar friend, in whom I trusted, which did eat of my bread, have lifted up his heel against me. But thou, O Yahweh, be merciful unto me, and raise me up, that I might requite them. By this I know thou favorest me, because my enemy doth not triumph over me. And as for me, thou upholdest me in my integrity, and settest me before thy face forever. Blessed be the I Am, God of Israel, from everlasting to everlasting. Amen and amen. It's not talking about Amen Ra, whatever you want to call that, whatever that thing is. But either way, deliver me from the hands of evil spirits, who have sway over the thoughts of men's hearts, and let them not lead me astray from thee, my God. Establish me in my seed, that we go not astray henceforth and forever. Jubilees chapter 12 and verse 20. Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Yes, all praises be to the Most High. And also we would say in this most time we would say congratulations to Mr. Trump, that he has secured the presidency of the United States. Yes. We thank God for that too. Either one, we would have done the same thing, whether it was Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. I mean, that's a high office. It's a very high office. And we thank God for the mercy that he's given us, and that we see that the ways of this world are pointing toward the favor of the Most High and those who trust him. Yes, God is maneuvering things. He's maneuvering things. You might not see it. Some people, they call themselves forecasting, foretelling, but you don't see. Why does God allow things? Why does he allow this and that to maneuver? If you read the words of the Most High, even the historical account of Israel, you can see how God moves. You will know, understand, and he will teach you to know him. If you would just look at how he's moving and actually equate him into the actions and things that are happening in what is said in the historical account of Israel. And it also tells more about him in his laws, statutes, ordinances, and commandments, in that God is fair. Yes, he's fair. But we're in the book of 2 Samuel. 2 Samuel, as you prepare, we're in 2 Samuel chapter 12. 2 Samuel chapter 12, another good one. It's sort of like in continuation of this here. And we want to say we thank God for those of you that have been with us from the beginning, and those of you who have been with us here and there's about. We thank the Most High for those of you who have just subscribed, and those of you who are about to subscribe. Yes, we thank God, calling those things that are not as though they are. Yes, you're walking with Mr. Clay. I am Mr. Clay. And we're just giving God the glory here because it's a new day. It's a new day. I've seen things that God just done in just a few hours. I'm not talking about the election, just a few hours for me. Yes. And I'm like, I didn't know this was culminating up to this. I mean, God just works in mysterious ways. It's not mysterious if we understand. Why are you making help? Why am I making these decisions? Why am I doing this? There's things that I bought I never used yet, but God, I said that God one day would have me use these things. Yes. But either way, we're in 2 Samuel chapter 12, and we just read how David, at that time, he was a murderer, an adulterer, a liar, coveting another man's wife. And to cover it up, he had the man put upon, this is murder. Murder by default. In other words, deniable plausibility type murder. It's like hiring a hitman or setting up a scenario where you know a person will be deleted or demised. Yes. And in 2 Samuel chapter 12 and verse 1, and the I am sent Nathan unto David. Nathan being the prophet of that time, because Samuel had rest. And he came unto him and said unto him, there were two men in one city, one rich and the other poor. See, this is the parable that God would put toward him. And the rich man had exceeding many flocks and herds. In other words, David, you got all these wives. You got beautiful, shapely, anything that a man would desire, wives. You can tell what tempted David in the previous chapter was demonic, because he rose out of his bed for no reason at all, and then he just decided to look out, and it so happened that this woman was washing. Why did he rise out of his bed? How come he just didn't stay there and just chilled out? Or call one of his concubines or one of his wives and, relaxed himself or whatever, had them nurture him or whatever he had to do. You ask yourself, but it turned out to the point where this tells you something about the spirit world. How that you wonder how some things you just cannot resist yourself. There's no excuse there, because of the commandments, statutes, and ordinances of the Most High is prevailing and is first and foremost in your life. You can get past temptation real good with flying colors. But when your mind is so filled with so many other things and so many other wars, and you got wives and you got all kind of things on your head, you got children and so many other things, and then next thing you know, and you're wondering, as we said before, lust is conceived. Lust has to be conceived. Desire has to be conceived first. If you had no desire for a certain thing and it just all of a sudden pops up, you have a desire for something that you know is wrong, it's time for you to back up and walk away. Easier said than done. Yes, that's true. But we must always be vigilant. Always be attentive to our inner thoughts, the thoughts of our hearts. Because even the strongest, these things are brought down at the right time. There was once a preacher said, he said that, one thing about temptation, you might have the desire, but not the temptation. But you might have the temptation and not the desire. But when these Satans can get these things together, when your lust is at its peak and the temptation or whatever it is, money, women, anger, malice, or whatever you have comes together, it can be a very bad thing before the Most High. Now, verse 3, he said, but the poor man had nothing. This man, all he had was his beautiful wife. A wife. That's it. A wife who just was washing herself because she came off her woman time. I said woman time, to put it bluntly, her period. But save a little ewe lamb. He enjoyed his ewe lamb, which he had brought bought and nourished up, and it grew together with him and with his children, and it did eat of his own meat and drank of his own cup, and lay in his bosom, and was unto him as a daughter. There's a truth here. I think I need to go on another program or a place where I can just get men to deal with that. And there came a traveler unto the rich man, and he spared to take his own flock and his own herd, and to dress for the wayfaring man that was come up to him, and took the poor man's lamb and dressed it for the man that was come to him. And David's anger was greatly kindled. And he said, Nathan, as the I am liveth, the man that have done this thing shall surely die. In other words, David, you should have been dead already. Your seed line should have been cut off. But apparently God still had something he wanted from David. Now there came, and he says in verse 6, he shall restore the lamb fourfold, because he did this thing and because he had no pity. No, David had no pity upon this man, even to look in his face and have lain with his wife. No pity, no shame, no nothing. This is the way of a thief, the way of a murderer. To look in your eyes and know he have done something to you wrong, but yet can look and say and smile in your face and have done this wrong and went as though nothing ever happened. Learn from the scriptures. Learn from this historical account. But God still had a thing for David. The kingdom is already messed up already. This is just something. And Nathan said unto David, thou art the man. You did it. You had no pity for this man. Because there's one law. God said one law. One law for the stranger and one law for the children of Jacob. In other words, there is no mercy in these things that you could, God is going to judge you both equally. One law for the king as well for the papa. God said these things. And he says like this, he said, thou art the man, thus saith the I am God of Israel. I anointed thee king over Israel, and I delivered thee out of the hand of Saul. I delivered you out of the hand of a foolish king. And I gave thee thy master's house. I gave you Saul's house. Thy master's wives unto thy bosoms, and I gave thee the house of Israel and of Judah. If had been too little, I would more have given thee such and such a things. You know, this is God being fatherly right here. This is God being fatherly. He said, what more could you want? You just let this Satan come in your heart and your mind and speak. We go back to where we said, deliver me from the hands of evil spirits who have sway over the thoughts of men's hearts. So he let these evil spirits have sway over the thought of his heart, when in his heart should he have hid the word of the Most High, even his commandments, statutes, ordinances, and laws. He should have hid them in his heart. But no, it didn't happen that way. God could have given you much more, but he wanted this little wee lamb. Even as you hear in African comedies, ee-wee. Yes. Wherefore hast thou despised the commandment of the I am, to do evil in his sight? Thou hast killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and have taken his wife to be thy wife. You did this. I took Nathan, but I did not take Nathan's wife to be your wife. You didn't lay with Nathan's wife. He was deleted. And his wife was free to be yours. He wasn't murdered. Thus saith the I am, behold, I will raise up evil against thee out of thine own house, and I will take thy wives before thine eyes, and give them to thy neighbor. And he shall lie with thy wives in the sight of this sun. For thou didst secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel, before the sun. This was a light thing. This was a light thing. God had to back up from his own laws, commandments, statutes, and ordinance for this foolish king, another foolish king. He had to back up from it. A light thing. What's that? You risked everything you had for just one moment with a woman. This woman who was married. If it was a virgin, that was another thing. She could be your wife. You said, howbeit by this deed thou hast given great occasion to the enemies of the I am to blaspheme. Now this is true. The Satans, not only in the spirit, but also in the flesh world, the world of flesh. He said, you've given account for these people to do these things. He says, now, howbeit by this deed thou hast given occasion to thy enemies. Now, the child also that is born unto thee shall surely die. There's nothing you can do, David, about this. This child is a bastard, an adulterous bastard. Just like some of the children that God allows even in the land today, in the earth today. Some of you, by the mercy of the Most High, are adulterous bastards. Bastards born of adultery. Some of you men have nurtured and supported women that are married to you with another man's child. Sadly, this woman had done it wickedly. This man was of no great authority that she could not resist him. But she did it anyway because she was bored. But either way, he said, and Nathan departed unto his house, and the I am struck the child that Uriah's wife bare unto David, and it was very sick. David therefore besought God for the child. For what? And David fasted and went in and lay all night upon the earth. For what? And the elders of his house rose and went to him and raised him up from the earth, but he would not. Just crying for the child. You gonna call God a liar? You just mock God just by what you did with this woman. Neither did he eat bread with them. So you're just as foolish as your master Saul was. And it came to pass on the 7th day that the child died, and the servants of David feared to tell him that the child was dead. For they said, behold, while the child was yet alive, we spake unto him, for he would not hearken to our voice. How then vex himself if we tell him that the child is dead? But when David saw that his servants wisdom, David perceived that the child was dead. Therefore David said unto his servants, is the child dead? And they said, he is dead. And David rose from the earth, washed and anointed himself, and changed his apparel, and came into the house of the I am, and worshipped. In other words, good is the word of the I am. Okay, he didn't take David's life. But still, he still stands a murderer and an adulterer and a liar. Then he came. This is the cause of these Psalms that you see that we have previously read. This is the sin that David was, should I say, was so bad about. This was the great sin. A man who had everything and wanted what the man that had nothing had. And he said, while the child was yet alive, I fasted and wherefore I said, who can tell whether God will be gracious unto me that who you think God is? But now he is dead, wherefore should I fast? Can I bring him back again? You couldn't bring him back from the day God said he should surely die. Shall I go to him? But he shall not return to me. But David comforted Bathsheba his wife. For what? Why is Bathsheba even wanting to be with him anymore at anything? She was afraid. I could assume that she was afraid. Well, she's an adulterous wife? I don't know. But who can resist this king who had subdued tens of thousands, only Saul his thousands? Who can resist this king that have marched and subdued kingdoms and caused people at his word to be demised and deleted? She had to be afraid more than in love with him. This king who displayed this wickedness before him, his subjects, and the Most High. And lay with her, and she bare a son and called his name Solomon. Now this was a curse in itself. Solomon was a curse. Really. You say, well, how is that, Brother Clay? Well, we'll see. Let's keep going. You might figure it out. And the I Am loved him. And he sent by the hand of Nathan the prophet, and he called his name Jedidiah because of the I Am. Jedidiah. And Joab brought forth Rabbah, the children of Ammon, and took the royal city. And Joab sent messengers to David and said, I have fought against Rabbah and have taken the city of waters. Now therefore gather the rest of the people together and encamp against the city and take it, lest I take the city and it be called after my name. Yeah, God loved Solomon for a little while. Yes, he did. He loved Solomon. Solomon did a great work for the Most High. We shall see. Yes, God had great mercies upon David, and even the mercies of David. Have you heard that saying, even the mercies of David, after reading the scriptures? What is the mercies of David? This. God can forgive you, but the law says no, only on the mercy seat. Mercy stands above the law, and God sat on the mercy seat probably that day. He had mercy in his heart. Because if he was the God that was in the book of Exodus, David would have been deleted quickly. And also Solomon. And David gathered all the people together and went to Rabbah and fought against it and took it. And he took their king's crown off his head, and weight thereof was a talent of gold with precious stones, and it was set on David's head, and he brought forth the spoil of the city in great abundance. This was all for the temple. This was God's choice anyway. He wanted Solomon to build it. He had to have peace. You cannot build anything in war because it's going to get torn down. God had to have peace. Understand and know. He loved David. He loved Solomon because he knew Solomon was going to do this. And he told David Solomon was going to do this. Or his son would do it. He didn't say his name, according to this narrative. And he took the king's crown from off his head, and the weight was a talent of gold, and it was set on David's head. And he brought forth the spoil of the city in great abundance. And he brought forth the people that were therein, and put them under saws, and under harrows of iron, and under axes of iron, and made them pass through the brick kiln. And did he unto all the cities and the children of Ammon. So David and all the people returned to Jerusalem. Why did he do this? To refine the gold. Yes, to refine gold. But now, David has something he has to pay for. He has to really suffer in this life. He really has to suffer in this life that he has, that this narrative is talking about. Because of the commandments, not just the subtitles of the commandments, but the actual commandments of themselves. See, we missed the whole thing about the commandments. We have to look at God. God is more wiser than we are, and if he reveals his wisdom to him, it's just in every language, you have what you would call You would have a heading, or should I say a certain thing, and then under that there are many other headings. The laws of God. And sometimes we don't get it. There's a lot of things that follow under adultery that can be deemed as adultery, or should I say also things that can deal with idolatry, worshiping and putting other things before the Most High. And then there's other things that could be considered liars, covetousness, which is the predecessor, and how lust is conceived. Evil lust is conceived to bring forth sin. With covetousness, we get jealousy and envy and strife, malice. We get murder. We get thefts. We get all these things from covetousness. So if I would put anything at the top of all these things that just happen, and then you hear the people bragging about their gods, so you turn to these pagan gods, and you would put at the top covetousness. Evil covetousness. This covetousness is against all the law. So did the narrative even say the law's right? We don't know. But either way, covetousness is at the top of it because it precedes all the other labels which sin is. Transgressions against the law. And we're going to go more in depth with this in our next chapter. This is a big, huge thing. This is a big, huge thing. This man has really, before God, look at what God says here. God has told him. What did he say? Let me get this back again. He says, now, this thing thou hast done, this thing that thou hast done. Not only did he shame God, for God had put him up as a man after his own heart. He gave him everything that he had. He said, I would have given you these things. He said, I would have given you. But he says in verse 14, it's best to write this down. When God had given you, even the least things God had given you. He said, because by this deed thou hast given great occasion to the enemies of the I am to blaspheme. Not only the enemies of the I am, that the I am was not only in that time, but in this time too. They call it contradiction. God hath cast his love upon David. But David did something that is so contradictory even to this day. Even the sinner, the devils, can sit up there and see that you said this man was after your heart. In other words, your heart is the law, and the law is your heart. Your commandments, your statutes and ordinances. This man is supposed to be after your heart. And you have given great occasion for the enemies of the I am to blaspheme. Who are the enemies? There's flesh and there's spirit. And the child that is born of thee shall surely die. That God hath cast his love upon David. He didn't repent of it. He had mercy upon David. And this is a great mercy that God could have, even when the law says that a person that murders has to be deleted, period. But with that, still, that was because of promise that he had to continue with David, else he would have destroyed him. And if we follow his commandments, statutes, and ordinances, we will have peace.
Walk with me.